and welcome back to Lemon Tree Corner. This week in the studio we are making another wallet. Now that we have tackled one, I feel confident in doing another one. So this week we are going to do the mini version of the one we did last week. So let's take a look at last week's version. Here we have the Necessary Clutch wallet, and that is by Emmeline Bags. And then this week we are doing kind of a hack. It was released as a separate pattern, but it does say adapted from. So it's technically somebody else's pattern using this pattern as a jumping off point. So it's going to be a little skinnier, meaning this one is about 8 inches long, and this one is probably going to be about 5.5, 6 when we're done. So it's kind of the same concept as the other one, just a smaller version of it. I did find a tutorial video because these wallets are so 3D for me. I have trouble visualizing how the pieces come together and all of that. So it's really helpful to have a video tutorial. And this week's tutorial comes from Jess from Okla Roots. Love her, so happy to do that. I'm gonna watch the video before I even cut out the pattern pieces, because Sean's video last week was so helpful in all of her modifications. I'm glad I watched that before I cut out anything. And this week's fabrics are totally fun. Kind of an Indian pattern here. I'm not sure, because this wallet is going to be so small, I'm not really sure how much of this pattern we're going to get. We might have to fussy cut out this part. Not sure yet. And then the lining is going to be this. So pretty much everything else is going to be this. If this does have a coin purse pocket in it, I will line the pocket with the brighter fabric, and then everything else on the interior will be the lining fabric. And then we have kind of a, I don't know what you would call that, a nautical blue for our zipper, and it's got a bronze metallic to it. I don't think I'm going to do a wristlet strap this week, just because it's a small wallet, and I want it to be my wallet. I don't want a wristlet strap on this one. And we're also going to switch out the twist lock for a magnetic snap. I just think that makes a cleaner profile to the wallet. I don't know why you would need to have a twist lock on a wallet. You know, for me, a magnetic snap is more than enough to keep everything in there. So that's what we're doing this week. I'm still working on my shawl, and I did pick, let's take a look at that other one. Remember the yarn crawl minis that me and my sister picked up? So I am gonna try, the other Expression Fiber Arts pattern with that. So this is the Segway, and it's got these cool bat wing kind of things, is what I'm calling them. And you'll see, like, this is gonna be a bitch to try and block out. She's got a whole part of the video where she shows you how to measure everything and block out all of these little wedges. But I did go ahead and count. I kind of cut down my minis so that I could do 2 wedges per mini. And I think that's gonna work out. I think I have to add 1 extra wedge to this, but I don't think that's gonna be that big of a deal. So that's all set up and ready for me to start. I'm gonna do like the first couple of wedges in the red and just see where I get to, make sure I have enough yarn to make 2 wedges out of each of those, because I'm changing everything, so I don't have the proper calculations of how much yarn that's gonna take. So we'll see what happens there. She has an interesting way of adding the next color in, so I'm just going to follow that pattern to a T. I'm just going to switch colors more often than is in the original pattern. So that's the plan for this week. It's nice and hot here in Southern California, so my plants are not happy with me right now. We have a lot of mosquitoes, so I can't really go in the backyard and water unless I'm covered from head to toe, kind of like in a beekeeper's outfit. So anything exposed, so like even in my wrists, they'll bite my wrists because the long sleeves, so I gotta wear gloves and make sure everything's covered. It's a pain. So my poor plants are not doing too good right now, but that's where we're at. So I'm also trying to plan another mini vacation in October, somewhere up the coast. You know, my dream is to find like a little beach cottage that actually has a deck overlooking the ocean and the stairs that go down to the beach. So I'm kind of looking at Carpinteria, Cayucos, you know, Santa Barbara area for that, and see if I can find a place. A lot of places are already rented out, so it's going to be a long shot, but I have a few that I'm looking at through Airbnb. So hopefully we can do that in October, just to do another little getaway. We recently found out at the school that our spring break is going to be paid time off. So we normally get a week for a winter break that's paid, where we don't have to take any vacation time. And they're also adding spring break for us because the staff, so the faculty would get that off because there's no classes or anything, but technically the college was open, so the staff was expected to come to work, even though it was like a super slow week. There wasn't a lot to do, so a lot of us would take vacation for that week, and I've done that the last few years. It's just a good week to get away. Nobody's really asking for anything because they're all gone. So since I don't have to take vacation time for that next week, I've got this extra vacation time. So I thought it would be fun to do a little getaway. As always, I'd like to thank you for joining me. I know your time is precious and there's a lot of stuff out there that you could be watching. So I really appreciate you coming and spending time in the studio with me. And if at any time you're liking the video, go ahead and hit the subscribe button, and that way you can come on the journey with us and be part of the community. And I've been really into seltzer water lately, like the flavored waters, like the bubbly, and then I just got Soleil because somebody bought out all the bubbly at our grocery store. So I'm trying another brand too, just to have some backups, but that's just been a godsend in this hot weather to have a nice cool bubbly drink that's not sugary or anything. So if you have one of those, go ahead and grab one of those, or grab a water or something else to stay cool, and let's work on this wallet. Okay, and here we are with the small one. I did watch the video, and it's put together exactly the same way as the big one. It's just a little skinnier. So one thing Jess did say in the video is that she used Decoville Heavy for the flap. So I think we're going to do that because the other flap was a little floppy. So I would like to make that change. Another interesting thing that she did is that, oh, that's cool. We've got some samples here. What she did is she just cut a hole. So instead of having to sew the two pieces together, she just cut a hole in the lining with a seam ripper, because that's all getting covered up with these other pieces anyway. So that's a lot easier than trying to make a whole different pattern piece. So we will do that. And the other thing that she did, she said that the rivets just seemed too bulky in this one. So we'll see when we come time for that if we should just sew it or do the rivets. So I think what I'm going to try and do with this one is I'm going to try and fussy cut out one of these pieces so that this is kind of the bottom of the wallet and the flap. What Jess did is she used the same fabric for the front and the back of the flap, which I really like. So I might do that for the, the lining of the flap might be the same fabric. So just trying to work out what's better, to have one of these on the bottom or to have this on the bottom and everything else on the top. I don't know. So we got to cut out our pattern pieces and iron all our fabric and get this guy going. Oh, and it's a good thing we made the big one first also, because she said this one is so fiddly because it's so much smaller. So like the zipper and everything is very fiddly. So I think our zipper is only, how big is our zipper? Our zipper is only 4.5 inches long. So that's a pretty short zipper. Yeah, I don't even know how we're gonna do that. So Jess suggested using a number 3 zipper instead of a number 5 zipper. And I looked through my number 3 zippers and I just really don't have a color that's gonna work for this. So I'm gonna go ahead and do the number 5 zipper anyway. And a fun thing here on this one, you have your choice between the normal credit card slots, but it's skinnier, so you're only gonna get one card horizontal per pocket. But she has a vertical option, and in the vertical option, you know, they would go vertical and then you can sew it down. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 as opposed to 6 you would have on the other side. And I think since we just made the horizontal pockets, we'll go ahead and make the vertical pockets just to be a little bit different here. And then there's a different shape if you're making the vertical pockets. So we've got, you know, we would normally draw a 1/2 inch out from the center line for what we did last week. But if you're going to do the vertical pockets, you can only do 1/4 inch because otherwise you're sewing down the bottom of those last vertical pockets. I think that's it. The only other thing here is that we do have an actual pattern piece for the interfacing, and I'm gonna use, oh, here's what we're talking about with the card slots. I am going to use the Decoville Light again for this stabilizer because I don't think it needs a lot, but for the flap I'm going to go ahead and use the Decoville Heavy. Just because I didn't feel like it had enough oomph. And then since we're doing the magnetic snap, I'm going to kind of play around with the placement of the snap here. So, you know, normally we would, this part's going to be fine. It's just where it falls on the body that I think I'm going to play around with. So I'm going to get all these pattern pieces cut out and get my fabric cut out and get to work. Hey friends! Welcome to Saturday. We've got a fun craft day with my mom. We're gonna go to the library and do a bookmark with paint chips or something. But first we're gonna have lunch with my mom and my stepdad. So we're here at Mimi's Cafe and I haven't been here in a long time. So looking forward to trying some old favorites. See you in a bit. Okay, so I'm struggling with my crochet. Here's an update. I started the Segway shawl, and this is what it's looking like, which is not great. I'm not going to be able to get enough out of each of these mini skeins to really make like the 2 wedges that I wanted to make. So then I'm kind of color changing in the middle of nowhere, and then they're all different weights, which is annoying. And then for some reason I'm off here on the end. It's supposed to mirror this. These get bigger, these get smaller or shorter. And I'm off on the pattern now. The pattern wants me to go all the way to here, which seems like less than this one. So I'm very confused about this pattern at this point. And I don't know that I like the fact that the color change is going to be all over the place and not actually be at the end of a wedge. So we're trying this one now. We're trying the Secret Meadow shawl. Problem is I'm starting with the darkest color in my rainbow, hoping to just try this out without tearing everything I've done on the other one out to see if this is any better. Only this one is one of those where you gotta go in the back loops, which is very hard for me to do without completely like pulling everything. And this is such a dark color, I can like barely see the back loops to get in there. So part of me is wondering, should I just try this with one of the lighter colors? But then I gotta pull it all apart. If I want to do this one, I have to pull it all apart. Whereas with this, I just have to pull it apart if I'm not gonna do this one. With these minis, yeah, I'm not sure what I'm doing at this point. This is just a 2-row repeat, which is nice. The segue is beautiful, and I love the wedges, but I really love this color. It's a pack that they have, I think, of 4 skeins of this kind of lilac color, and it blends into like a gradient of the lilac. And after going to the lavender fields a couple of weeks ago, this just looks beautiful to me. I would love to get this yarn or a similar yarn. This yarn pack is $165, so I don't know that I'm getting this yarn pack. But yeah, I love that color, and I don't have a color like that in my stash, so that would be nice. And with this one, I love this color too. I would really love to make like a gradient out of green for this. Plus I have those green minis. They obviously wouldn't be like 3 skeins of 400 yards each, you know, yarn, but I could easily get some more green minis to make that out of, or just green yarn to make this out of. So I'm not sure what I'm doing right now. I've got like every light on the house on to try and see what I'm doing here, because I can't really see my loops. It's just really hard. I love this ribbing texture, but I just didn't realize it was one of those back loop things. So this entire shawl is going to be me going into the back loops, which is not my favorite thing to do. And since it's a 2-row repeat, now the other thing I can do is I can just pick out any old repeating pattern, like the moss stitch, linen stitch idea that I had in the beginning, the very beginning shawl that I tried. I really can't see what I'm doing here at all, even with all the lights on in the house. Yeah, I was just going to do a few rows of this to see what it looked like and then make my mind up, but I feel like I don't know what's going on, and I don't know. I think I should probably just try a different color where I can actually see what I'm doing. Is probably better. I just don't want to have to start this whole thing over again. And meanwhile, I haven't worked on my wallet, so I need to get the wallet done today as well. Had a fun day with my mom yesterday making our bookmarks, which are super easy. They're just paint chips that you get at Home Depot, and you plunk a hole in there. We had to make a tassel, which mine are not great. I'm thinking of redoing the tassels now that I know how to make them, because I have a bunch of embroidery floss, and obviously the red doesn't really go with my paint chips. And then she just had us put kind of like a poeming thing. So I grabbed 2 quotes from Morgan Harper Nichols, who I love. Look her up, Morgan Harper Nichols. Morgan Harper Nichols on Instagram. Very positive. I love seeing her posts every day. So I just did that, and she had some llama stickers, so that was fun and just a fun day. out with my mom, get to spend time with her. And yeah, so I'm going to continue on with this, waste some more time, and then finally get back to our wallet and finish that off. So wish me luck. We'll check in later. Okay, so here we are with our sample on the Secret Meadow shawl. I like the rib texture. I just feel like this technique is a lot of work for this kind of rib texture. It's not a very pronounced rib for the amount of work that I'm doing for this. And doing it as a shawl this wide, I'm not going to get very far with these minis. So this one's out. On to the fourth and fifth idea, which is the Celtic song scarf, which is beautiful. It's just kind of a shell pattern, which I think would work nice. The scarf obviously is going to take less yarn, so I should be able to do that. That was the original plan anyway. And the other idea is a side saddle stitch scarf. That's hard to say. And I mean, it's already in rainbow, so I already like it. And it's kind of a shell pattern too. Both of these have a full tutorial video. So I believe this one does. This one definitely does, because I typed this up myself. So we will give both of these a shot with one of the other colors. And at this point, I just want to have a project to do with these minis, and I want to get it started, and I don't know why I'm being so crazy about this. And we need to get back to work on our project. So I'm going to tear these apart, and then we're going to get back to work on our bag, which I have not sewed anything for yet, but we have our card slots all ready to go. And we're just gonna crank through it today and get her done. And meanwhile, we are still listening to A Light in the Window. I've got about 4 hours left on this. It's really long. And then after this, we're gonna move on to Magic Lessons, which is the first book in the Practical Magic series. So I think Practical Magic is book 2. So I think I'm gonna go for that series and then rewatch the movie. Probably rewatch the movie before I get to that, because that's the second book. I totally skipped a step. I forgot to top stitch the top of the pockets. This is once again a prototype, and once again going to be my wallet, so I'm not going to worry about that. I really don't want to unpick the stitches just to do the top stitching. So we'll just deal with it that way. I can't really do the top stitching without tearing all those stitches apart, which is going to ruin the fabric. So we've got to cut this down. Got that done. Now, the thing with this wallet is it's basically a mini version of the other one. So everything we're doing here is way teenier than it was the first time around. So that's the only problem we have on this one, is that it's micro. So our zipper's teeny, everything's teeny. So, okay, so she's having us follow the original pattern, which means I need to go get the original pattern back out again. I already put that away. I guess I'm just sewing these across like this. I'll have to measure before I sew the other side on to make sure. Okay, well, it really doesn't give me a lot to go on here as far as what the finished size of the zipper should be. It just tells me to look at the original pattern, which doesn't help because that's a huge zipper. So I'm kind of confused here about what we're doing. I even measured before I started thinking that I would have it there correctly. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna center this here and sew the pockets together and hope for the best. I agree with Jess in the tutorial on this one. This isn't my favorite way of doing zipper tabs. I'd rather do zipper tabs the other way because these get sewn in and they're just not gonna lay flat the way I want them to. So I think especially for this one, because it's so much smaller, I would rather do my normal zipper tabs. Sure, we're gonna sew these together at 1/4 of an inch. So I wanna make sure that mine, he leaves enough room here to not interfere with the seam or the top stitching. So I'm probably gonna do it pretty high up there. We're gonna make sure we're centered. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 inches. So we want that to be right there in the middle, 3 inches. Alright, so you'll see the overlap here. I think I liked the original pattern better where I shoved in the Decoville heavy later, because now turning it over I've got this line here. So I don't like that. I could have attached it to the lining side as well, which means that our snap would have had some stabilizer on that side. So it's just one of those things that's gonna bother me, I'm sure. What we could do is we could just cut, maybe we should just cut down the middle of this. Although because I did the pattern pieces this way, it's not exactly, we want to make sure that we don't cut the slit too big or else it won't be covered up by the stitching. But I think the way we just did this here should work. Okay, so now we're going to sew this in the middle. I'm just going to center my flap there and then center this between there. Now because we didn't cut it in half the way we did on the last one, we don't have that nice center mark that we had on the last one, so that was kind of handy to have the center mark. Once again, I forgot to hit the record button. So here we are, it's already sewn. So this was the one time I was gonna do something at the sewing machine this week. I've got lots of little tails here. Okay, so the only thing left we have to do is we're gonna iron this to get rid of our marks. And it did sew the pocket shut. I was worried that that wasn't far enough down to sew the pocket shut, but it was. So the pocket is shut. The only other thing we have to do is figure out if we want to use rivets or just sew this. It is nice and thin, so I could sew it. It's also a smaller wallet, so I might not want the rivets in there. So since I just forgot to hit record and you didn't see me sew anything this week, let's go ahead and sew these, and then you could see me sew something this week. Okay, so just like we did last week, we want to make sure we're going to fold everything out of the way. We want to make sure that this fabric is caught in here all the way down. So I'm going to move these down a little bit. I'm actually going to flip them to the other side, because they said this is easier to do. Oh, actually no, it's easier to do this way because of the bulk. Oh, that's tight. This is why I did the rivets. This is going to be difficult. It's not even that it's too bulky, it's that it's hard for me to fold everything else out of the way. To do this, I'm going in a little more than 1/4 of an inch. And I'm just going to top stitch this and back stitch. I don't have to go very far down, I'm just tacking this down. I'm going to do these two first because they just seem easier to me. I want to make sure it actually caught everything. It caught the pockets, so that's good. Okay, we are all done. There we go. Okay, we are all done. Gonna give us our check mark. So this only took 4 hours, partially because I just made the full-size one last week, so it's fresh in my head. So that's a good sign for the other one. I do still feel like the magnetic snap could have been further down to make this tighter, but we didn't know that at the time. I'm glad we changed the thread color on that part, because I cannot see that at all. Okay, and I forgot to iron off the marks before we did everything. So let's take a look at what the cards look like in there. If our vertical card slots work. There we go. Okay, I think they work. One's sticking up higher than the other, so that's good. So I think we sewed it together correctly. Yeah, I think this is definitely a more doable pattern with the magnetic snap in particular. It feels a lot lighter than the one we made last week. Plus without the wristlet strap. So, you know, without all that hardware, I think it works really good. And we don't even have the rivet hardware in here. I think the only difficult thing is this, this zip pocket. It's very teeny and fiddly. So this whole thing is a lot fiddlier than I would have liked. I'm glad we made the big one first, because that definitely helped me in this case to be able to visualize this and figure. If I was making this one first, I would have been in some real trouble there. So all in all, a good pattern. I think the way she wrote it with just saying, okay, I give up now, go back to the original pattern and follow the rest of the directions, that was a little annoying. I would rather have this be a standalone pattern that has all of the instructions in here, to the point where I'm probably going to have to print out the rest of this pattern to keep with this pattern, just staple it behind it, because otherwise I got to dig out both patterns each time I want to make the small one. So I'm going to give this a B as well, just because it was about the same. So yeah, I mean, if I could get both of them down to 4 hours, then that would be great. And I definitely like the magnetic snap better than the turn lock. Hey friends, that's it for this week. Thanks for joining me. Let's take a look at our finished product. I changed my mind about the placement of the snap. Once I filled this up with all my stuff, all my cards and everything, it's pretty full. So I'm glad that the magnetic snap is where it's at, which means it's not floppy at all now because it's totally full. So it needed all of that room to expand. I've already started using it, so I really love this. I think this is a good thing to add to the product line. So I will try and whip up a few more of these. They really don't take that much fabric, at least, you know, for the main body of it. The card slots and stuff take more fabric, but I have all of that grunge fabric that's kind of interchangeable, so I should be able to do that. I might go to Joann's and get the smaller zippers to match some of these, just because it's kind of chunky. I don't think it's too bad, but it's definitely chunkier than a normal wallet zipper would be. So all in all, very pleased with this, and for some reason I thought the video would be way shorter this week because we've already made this pattern last week, so I didn't want to do like too much of a repeat. But then we spent the day with my mom and we had other things going on, so I hope you enjoyed seeing some other things outside of the studio as well. Oh, and let me show you progress on our new project. I've gotten quite a ways. I've had quite a few nights on the couch to work on this. So it's really cool. It's like a very cool bubble texture. You can see that texture coming through. So that's nice. I'm just going to change colors when I run out of yarn. So that's where we're at with that. I did have this one that was kind of a light red into more of an orange. And it's just too thick. It's too thick. It looked too big of a difference. It kind of like went like this when I started working on it, and I don't necessarily need to block this or want to block. I don't want it to be wider just to accommodate that one yarn. So all the other yarn is about as thin as the first color, the red. So I'm just gonna skip that yarn. I won't have an orange or a good transition, but oh well. So that's where we're at with that, so I'm very happy with that. And that is the side saddle stitch pattern. So I will link that down below if you're interested. She's got a full tutorial, and it's a pretty fast make. Like if you're just gonna go through it, I did use the 4mm hook because she's using a much thicker yarn in the video than me. But yeah, highly recommend the pattern. It's pretty easy to do. And it's just like a 2-row repeat and makes up pretty fast. You see how much I got done already, so that's good. And I'd just like to thank you for joining me again this week. We have a fun bag next week. It's a hobo bag. So I hope you join me for next week, and I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Love you, friends. Bye.